What's going on, guys? Aaron from Top Tier Gaming here, and today I'm going to be bringing you my Madolche deck list that I've recently been picking up and playing with. I entered it into 3 different tournaments last weekend on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I managed to only lose 1 game every single day. Like, I came in 2nd place on Saturday and Sunday. So I think the deck performed super well, and it's a deck I really enjoy. But I think it's honestly one of the most interesting decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! Because when I look at it, it just feels like it shouldn't work, but it does. And I'm going to kind of explain what I mean by that in the deck profile, because there's a bunch of conflicting elements in the deck, which really makes it super interesting to me because it has so many different moving parts, and its combos aren't maybe as intuitive as a lot of other decks. So yeah, it's a super good time, and I really enjoy this deck. But before we get into the deck profile, check down below in the description for our Discord link. Discord's been growing. It's a really good time. We're getting some more members. Plans to do some really cool stuff on the Discord. It's just about like getting the time to set that up. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into the Madolche deck profile. Alright, before we get into it, I do want to mention that at the end of this profile, I will have combos for the deck, or at least 1 combo, because, like I said earlier, the combos aren't as intuitive as maybe some other decks. It has a bunch of moving parts, as I previously said, and yeah, this is going to be a pretty fun deck profile explaining the inner mechanisms of Madolche. But to start it off, we are going to start off with some starters. We have 3, Madolche. She's my favorite starter, and I think the best one, because she's super good with Salon being able to net you a Rafflesia before you go into your combo, if you so choose to run the Gravedigger package. And that's like super useful because this deck, its worst enemy is Nibiru, to be honest. But yeah, Madolche's a 1-card starter as long as you don't have a monster in grave. So going first, she's almost always a 1-card starter. Going second, this deck can get into some different situations which starters are actual starters. But Madolche, when she's summoned, she is a Stratos, which is always good. Then we have the next starter, which is 3, Madolche Angeli. So she tributes herself to special summon a Madolche monster from your deck. Now, what's really interesting about this starter, she puts herself in graveyard. So like her and Hoot Cake have like a lot of synergy because you put her in grave and then Hoot Cake instantly has a target to banish. And that's like the really old like 2014 Madolche sort of lineup there is Angeli and the Hoot Cake. And you still do that combo, and Angeli at the end of the day is just a starter because she can search your Petting Cessor. And she can search like Messenger Lottos depending at what point of the combo you are in or how you started. So yeah, very versatile, just Lone Fire Blossom for Madolche monsters. And then arguably the most powerful monster in the deck, or the worst in some situations, is your 3 Petting Cessor. So Petting Cessor being one of the newer Madolches, not like super new at this point, but the newer Madolche, she can special summon herself from your hand if you have no monsters in your graveyard. And then when she's special summoned, you can special summon a Madolche monster from your deck and decrease its level by 1. This is not optional. Meaning if you need to make rank 4s, you either special Pudding Cess or Angeli to tribute for a rank or level 4. And then you're locked into Madolche monsters, and that's really important. It's not like Madolche monsters from the extra deck. You are locked out of Madolche monsters entirely. Meaning, like, if the situation arises where you can special summon this on your opponent's turn and you have a Nibiru in hand, it might not be so good to activate the effect. But Petting Cessor is like the main starter of the deck. Like, she made Madolche a starter because Madolche can search her, and then you can special summon and go off. But this is where like the confliction of the entire deck starts to come into play. Like Hoot Cake needs monsters in graveyard, so sometimes you want to play hand traps that put themselves in graveyard. However, if you do, then you're turning off your Petting Cessor, and like vice versa. If you open Hoot Cake and you're not running hand traps to go to grave for Petting Cessor, then Hoot Cake might be dead. And it's like this huge like contradiction inside the deck that you have to move around and play your resources smart and build your deck with a little bit of thought process going into it to like make it consistent. And it is a little weird, but the deck still, I mean, it worked really well for me, and it has a pretty decent amount of success, so it still works. But that is pretty important to note, is there is a bit of contradiction there. And then to go with our Petting Cessor is the Pudding Cess. You special summon her off the Petting Cess, and she's level 4, which means you can make rank 4 plays. Most importantly, you can go into Chocolate with her off of a Glass Souffle. And then like full combo from there. Like, she is a mandatory run, one of the main Madolche monsters, so you do have to run at least 1. And then to follow up with the other Madolche monsters who are very important, we have 2 Hoot Cake, which can be a starter if you put a monster in graveyard and like you're going second or going first, because we're running a card that lets us do that. And yeah, he's a main combo piece because he is Beast, which is important for your 2 Messenger Lotto, because when he's special summoned and you control a Beast monster, you can search a Madolche spell or trap from your deck to your hand. Super important to search all your spell pieces, which are very important for the deck. And yeah, like Searching Promenade as well. Like you have to play at least 2 of each of these. Maybe you can play 1 Message Gelato, but like if you draw them, then you're in a very tough spot. But yeah, so that's it for the Madolche monsters. On to sort of the hand trap lineup, which is one of the most interesting parts about the deck because it's very hard to decide which hand traps you want. You can go ones that go to graveyard or ones that don't go to graveyard, and you can play like Imperm because it's a trap and not a monster, which is useful. But we're going with 3 Orange Light, which this has become standard recently. I'd say it's a recent development, like in the last year. This has picked up a lot of popularity. This card's insane because it lets you play through Nibiru, but this is another point of like a big contradiction in the deck is the fact that you do have a lot of fairy Madolches, but they're not all fairy. So like if you have this and like an extra Magdalene in hand or like a Messenger Gelato, it's not an interrupt, but you need to have like one of the fairies, which is Angeli, Petting Cess, or Pudding Cess, to make this card super good, or itself, of course. You can also side deck Lancia, who's a fairy, which is really interesting. But yeah, this card is still like super good because it can negate Nibiru or other hand traps. And with Glass Souffle and Chateau on the field, like 1 Herald of Orange Light can end up being 2 Herald of Orange Light, which is very powerful because of the way Glass Souffle works. And yeah, Herald of Orange Light, just very good. Again, it puts something in graveyard, so you have to be very careful with it going second if the monster, or like your starter in hand, is Petting Cessor. Then we have 3 Nibiru. This one's almost like a no-brainer because we don't always want hand traps to go to graveyard, and this one is super impactful. And then, not really to combo with it, but another very impactful hand trap is the 3-Dimension Shifter. So D-Shifter in this deck is super interesting because you can almost always go back to 0 cards in graveyard, which is very nice, and there's an in-engine way to use D-Shifter multiple times with Glass Souffle. If you do like your entire combo, and then use this as the last card, and you have no cards in grave obviously, so you didn't use Prosperity or something, then you can like chain Glass Souffle to D-Shifter, and then Glass Souffle can proc, and you can actually add the D-Shifter and the Madolche back, which is super good because it means you can use D-Shifter multiple times. And this card's super cool because if you open him and Hoot Cake, you can actually use Hoot Cake as a very easy starter by putting D-Shifter in the graveyard. You don't not all Madolche lists are playing D-Shifter, but it's one of the decks that can, and honestly this won me too many games this past weekend, and it's just one of the most powerful hand traps you can play. I think if your deck can play D-Shifter, there's a very good reason to play D-Shifter. Yeah, these are just super powerful, impactful hand traps that, yeah, especially paired together, are really nice because some decks can play through Nibiru, but it's very hard to play through Nibiru when your resources get banished instead of going to graveyard. And that's it for monsters. On to the spells. 3 Prosperity. This card is very good because it lets you search for one of your starters or one of your spell cards if you already have a starter. If you can't afford Prosperities, I recommend Extravagance, but your extra deck will have to change from this video's. And if you can't afford Extravagance, I don't recommend playing Desires. I recommend like playing other good cards like more traps or more hand traps or other flex spots. But if you have access to Prosperity, definitely play it. It is a super powerful card in this deck, and it lets you choose what you banish out of your extra deck, which is the main reason I like it over Extravagance. 3 Salon, getting into the Madolche spells. These are like the most important part of your deck. However, another big thing with this deck is you're running things like Messenger Gelato, the Herald of Orange Lights that need another fairy, and you're running these spell cards. Like, the deck can brick, and that's one of my least favorite things about the deck is you're running so many important pieces that aren't necessarily garnets but require other cards to be good. Like, all of these spells are very important, but they require you to have a play for them to even be decent. And like, if you open just one Hoot Cake or, you know, some hand traps, you're not really going to get there, and these spells are doing nothing. However, these spells are what make Madolche super powerful. Salon's an extra normal summon, and it sets like Promenade or Ticket from your deck. Ticket is like a Rhoda that can also be an emergency teleport, which is super good. And Chateau is a very powerful field spell that boosts all your monsters, and Shuffles, which procs like Chocolate. And yeah, overall you have to play all of these, and this is like the standard ratio. I don't think this is going to change much. It's pretty normal for every Madolche build as far as I know. Then I am running 2 Triple Tactics Talent and 1 Called by the Grave. Hand traps are really annoying for this deck. You have some hands that like can play through multiple interruptions, then you have some hands that die to like 1 Ash. So Tactics and Called by are very good for playing through interruption, or like if you can play through multiple hand traps, like Tactics can get one out of your opponent's hand. Because you're obviously running Prosperity, so you're not going to be drawing off this card every time. But yeah, looking at your opponent's hand and ripping a hand trap or their play is super powerful, and obviously going second. Tactics is just a crazy good card, and Called by is like the best card in the game. So we're definitely going to be running Called by no matter what. And then lastly, for spells, I am playing a Harpy's Feather Duster. This is technically any flex spot, but like Rivalry is gaining just a lot of popularity along with Gozen, right? And Gozen doesn't hurt you, but Rivalry can. So yeah, Feather Duster is just a good out to back row, and it gives you a little bit more go second cards initially. And then that's it for spells. On to traps, we have the 2 Promenade. I'm not playing a Madolche Knight, so these are the only Madolche traps I'm running. I am considering Knights because there are some times where you open good, and then you're really wanting an extra search off Mess and Gelato, but there's nothing to grab you don't already have. So yeah, that's what the Knights is really good for. And it's not hard to set up, it's just more like space is like really tight to keep it at 40 cards, and Knights is just another trap you can draw without seeing a play, and then it's pretty mediocre. But yeah, 2 Promenade, this is like one of the most powerful traps, like, period. Like, I think this and Tidying are super good trap cards, and this one edges it out in my opinion a little bit, because it's a hot red negate that restarts your engine and then procs all your spells, so it can be like a +4 by itself, which is absolutely insane, and it's so searchable. And it can protect floodgates like Gozen Match, and we're choosing to run this because this card does nothing to us, and it can absolutely destroy things like Prank Kids or Tri Brigade, and honestly, such a powerful card. Really good in the Altergeist matchup as well, which has been picking up at our locals. So yeah, Gozen Match, you don't have to run this, or like, if you don't want to play the Feather Duster, then 3 Gozen Match is my next go-to. And then 1 Gravedigger's Trap Hole, and this is for the Rafflesia in the extra deck. Speaking of extra deck, getting on into it, we have the 2 Sistart, very important. All the Madolche monsters are very important in the extra deck. We have 2 Glass Souffle, which is sort of like your main starter and one of the best interruptions you have. Honestly, the best card in the extra deck in my opinion. Maybe even more so than Tiramisu, and I actually do recommend playing 3 of it. It hasn't come up for me, but of any Madolche monster, I think that's the one maybe to play 3 of. Then we have 2 Tiramisu, just like such a good form of removal. It can out Dragoon, goes for such easy OTKs, and this card was way ahead of its time. Every time I read it, I'm like, this card is just way too powerful. It recycles Promenades too, which is great. And then 2 Chocolate, which is very good for like your first turn combo, and then it's also a nice material for going into like multiple Send Zeuses, which is very nice. That's it for the Madolche monsters. We can just play 2 of each because we are on the Prosperity version, but if you're running Extravagance, you need to play 3 of each of these, because if any, like, banishing 1 3 of off Extravagance is very rare, but when you have 4 different 3 ofs, like, any one of those you banish all 3, and it's very devastating, so you have to max them. And then 1 Rafflesia, because again, playing Prosperity gives us a little bit more flex in the extra deck, and Rafflesia is super good to stop Nibiru or other hand traps. 1 Dweller, 1 Baguska Old Plan B, because he can win games by himself. Cowboy essentially is for time, I mean, let's not lie here. And that's it for like rank 4 flex spots. Then we have 1 Vespinato, because we are running that Rafflesia. This is a pretty good overlay onto her for the like your follow-up turn for damage, and it can follow up as well. We have the Zeus, just amazing go second card, clears many boards. And then we are running 1 Nightmare Unicorn, which you can run any flex spot here. This is pretty much an out to Contact C, because that card can be super devastating. Just getting it off the board can be tough. Although, one interesting thing about D-Shifter that I did this weekend was someone Contact C'd me after my Pet Accessor, and I just Tribute Summoned D-Shifter on top of it. It was pretty funny. But yeah, this is an out to Contact C, and it's a pretty good out in general. So that is it for the extra deck. Now I'm going to get into a combo, kind of show what this deck can do, and like all the power that's behind it. And there's a bunch of like the combos, like seeing a combo video is pretty useful because the combos aren't super intuitive, as I've said it before. So without further ado, let's get into it. Alright guys, so getting into the combo, I'm going to do one of the 1-card combos, and then I'll get into some hand tests to show what the deck can actually do when you're not just like playing your 1-card combo. So yeah, we're going to start with a Madolche. Now this can be Angeli or Pet Accessor, however Madolche does give you an extra body on board, so she is technically the best starter. And this is just going to show what I can do off of 1 card. I'm pretty sure there's multiple different ways to do the Madolche combo, and there might even be a better way than this one, I'm not quite sure. But this has been like the best one I've seen that I've been using. And yeah, if you open her and Salon and you have like any 2-card combo, that it gets actually even crazier. But yeah, we're just going to start off with our Madolche, and we're going to activate Madolche's effect, and we're going to grab Pet Accessor from our deck to our hand. Because we have no monsters in our graveyard, we're going to special summon Pet Accessor and activate her effect. She is going to bring out Puddingcess and drop her level by 1. Then we are going to overlay these two. Zones do kind of matter in Madolche, so keep track of those. And we're going to make Glass Souffle. And we're going to activate Glass Souffles, detaching the Pet Accessor, very, very important, to make, I guess, Madolche unaffected by monster effects, because we are instantly going to be using our Glass Souffle as a material for chocolate. Then we're going to activate Chocolate's effect to put Pet Accessor back into our deck, triggering the chocolate, and we're going to detach Glass Souffle. And then Glass Souffle is going to special summon Angeli from our deck. Next, we are going to tribute the Angeli to special summon Hoot Cake. Yeah, this combo still exists today, technically. Putting a monster in grave is very, very good. We are going to banish the Glass Souffle for the Hoot Cake and special summon Gelato, who is going to search Chateau from our deck to our hand. And then once we're here, we're going to activate the Chateau, which is going to put Angeli back to our deck. And then we can prop the chocolate because a card was shuffled and we have Puddingcess as a material. And that is going to special the other Gelato, which I accidentally left in deck, so we're going to go have a fun time looking for him. Here's the other Gelato. We'll special summon it. Of course, we're using all 5 zones, so it looks a little messy here. Okay, so then the Gelato is going to search Salon, and we're going to go ahead and activate the Salon. Now we're going to take a Madolche and a Gelato, and this is one of the reasons opening Madolche is so much better, is you get to use one Gelato as a material and put the other one in graveyard, which is very important for follow-up stuff. So make the Glass Souffle, and then we're going to turn, you can either turn the chocolate or the Hoot Cake. It depends if you want to bounce. I like to use the Hoot Cake because it lets you bounce a monster to your hand with, what card am I looking for? Promenade, which is very, very good because then it procs your spells. But yeah, you can also use this and leave Hoot Cake on the field for follow-up, but I'm just going to use Hoot Cake and Gelato to special summon Sistart. And this is where zones come up. You really want Sistart to be pointing to a Madolche monster. And then Glass Souffle's effect is going to activate because the Madolche card was sent to graveyard. You're going to send Gelato or send Gelato back to deck, and we'll add Puddingcess to our hand. And then that's going to proc Salon, and Salon is going to set Promenade from your deck. So off one card, we ended with Promenade, Salon, and Chateau, which is very good. That means this is 3k, 27, 2k, and this thing has some protection. Because Promenade can bounce Hoot Cake back to negate, you're going to proc Salon and set either Ticket or another Promenade, depending on which one you think you need. Glass Souffle is like a double DD Crow on your opponent's turn, or if you have like Orange Light with the Puddingcess you added to hand, you actually have like 2 negates because Chateau can add back the Orange Light, and that's what you can get off one card, but that of course is just a very standard no interrupt combo. Now I'm going to open a hand and show you what the deck can really do and how consistent it really is. Starting now. Alright guys, giving it a quick power shuffle. It was just in deck profile order besides the cards I took out for that combo. And yeah, if we brick, honestly, it's going to show, like, it depends how we brick. Like, if we brick on hand trap, it's really good, but I have actually drawn, like, the spells are the best and worst part of your deck is what I'm trying to say. Now, I did do very well this weekend, so the deck more often than not is pretty consistent, but it's just those times where it's not that are a little frustrating because when you brick in this deck, it's usually pretty bad with like very few interrupts. But let's see what we can do. So starting off, we're going to open Madolche, which means we're doing pretty nice for ourselves. And Pet Accessor, when you draw these two together, it's amazing because it plays through one interrupt instantly. A Salon, a Puddingcess, of course, this is glued to your hand at all times, and Nibiru. So we have a Nibiru for go second, which is pretty good, but going first, this hand is amazing because you open Salon. And so showing what you can do with the Salon, this is our hand. I'm going to have it kind of like down here and hope just that the camera can see it. You're going to activate Salon before anything because it means if you get Gamma, you're at least going to get to set. And we're going to activate Madolche. Normal summon Madolche off of Salon's effect. And then with Madolche, we're going to search another Madolche and normal summon her. These cards are not once per turn, and Madolche can search herself, which is very, very good. And I guess I'm going to go ahead and search Angeli. Normally, you would just, like, if you don't open the pet accessor, here's where you search the pet access, but we'll search Angeli for some sort of follow-up. And then with both Madolches, we are going to make Rafflesia, and this is how we are going to avoid Nibiru. Like, if you open Madolche Salon, it's pretty good. Now, there are downsides to making Rafflesia, is that you don't keep that extra body on board like we did with the one card combo, but yeah. And now we're going to special summon the pet accessor because we have no monsters in grave. And we're going to special summon Pudding Cess from hand. Definitely don't want to open this, but I mean, you will all the time. At least I do. She is actually just permanently glued to my hand. Then we're going to make Glass Souffle, and this is essentially the same as our previous one card combo, except we don't have a Madolche on field, and we opened Salon. So we're going to overlay our chocolate. And then we are going to use Chocolate's effect to put back Pet Accessor, and then Salon's going to trigger as Chain Link 1. This is a mandatory effect, so not only is it going to be on Chain Link 1, but you have to activate it. And then we're going to Chain Link to Teacher. Now, it's very important to note about these spells being mandatory is if you're going to summon Messenger Gelato off of either Ticket or this, you need to special summon it off Ticket so that he's Chain Link 1 because he is a win effect. So he will miss timing if he's summoned off Chain Link 2. Now we are going to special summon the Angeli as we have before. Special the Angeli and tribute for Hoot Cake. Everyone loves Hoot Cake, one of my favorite in the Madolche archetype for sure. Then we're going to use Hoot Cake's effect to banish the... I'm switching up my banish pile here, which is a little weird, but we're going to banish to special summon Messenger Gelato. Luckily, we did not open any of him because that is the worst feeling. We're going to use Messenger Gelato's effect to add the Chateau. Which this should look very, very standard. Because it's essentially the same thing. Oh, my bad. We didn't set off Salon. Salon is supposed to set Ticket here. My apologies. So Salon set Ticket when we shuffled back and specialed the Hoot Cake. It was Chain Link 1. And then with Messenger Gelato, we're still going to search Chateau. So we're going to go ahead and grab Chateau. And then we're going to activate the Chateau like we did in our last combo. We're going to shuffle back the Angeli. And then Ticket's going to be Chain Link 1. Chocolate is going to be Chain Link 2. With Chocolate, we are going to... Or, no, we're not going to activate Chocolate, excuse me. Once you have the Rafflesia up, you can't summon off of your Chocolate because that is going to lock your zones and Ticket will have to add. You want Ticket to special summon Messenger Gelato. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to special Messenger Gelato. You can put the Chocolate in the extra monster zone and then use her as a material for Sistart, which lets you use her effect, and it's what I should have done, but I didn't, so we're just going to roll with it. And then off of the other Messenger Gelato, we're going to add Promenade. So now here we're going to use our Messenger Gelatos to make Glass Souffle, and because we don't have that Madolche on board, we unfortunately have two Messenger Gelatos under her, which makes our follow-up weird, but it'll be fine because she's able to use her effects on your opponent's turn as well. And then we can take our Chocolate and our... Like, if we put this in the extra monster zone like I was supposed to, you essentially put Madolche under her, and then you do exactly like we did in our one card combo. So that's my bad, but it shows that, you know, even I mess up, so don't feel too bad if like you're learning the deck, you mess up every now and then. Sistart, Glass Souffle's effect, we're going to add Hoot Cake back to our hand, and we're going to put, I guess, Chocolate back into our extra deck. Then we're going to set our Promenade, and yeah, this is pretty good because you activate Promenade to negate one of their effects. You're going to proc 2 spells and add the card back to your hand. We have Nibiru, we have Rafflesia, we have Teacher, which is a double DD Crow, we have Protection for our spells and traps. It's a really good board. It doesn't put up any crazy negates. I mean, you have 1 negate. But it's a super strong board that builds a lot of follow-up and attempts to play with the opponent, which is my favorite part about it. Of course, unless you open Goes and Match, and then you're just floodgating them. But yeah, that was the combo and the deck profile. I hope you enjoyed. Madolche is a super fun deck with a lot of potential, but it has a very low floor. It has a super high ceiling. I think when this deck is rolling, it's one of the best decks out there. Honestly, super impressive. I was impressed the whole time playing it when I could combo. But it has one of the lowest floors in the game of just drawing like spells. Like opening double Salon, Chateau, and like Hoot Cake, not good. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. This has been Aaron from Top Tier Gaming. Bye YouTube.